The film starts in Algeria in 1925, where a boy named Messaoud hurries back to his father as he sees the gendarmes approaching. The father quickly inspects the situation, and the rest of the family follows him to confirm. As the gendarmes reach them, one of them, named Mr. Qaid, greets the family and informs them about the court order stating that the land they live on belongs to Mr. Gourini, who happens to be their neighbor. On the contrary, the father justifies that the land is an inheritance from their ancestors. As a response, Mr. Qaid asks if he has a document of ownership to support his claims, which confuses the father as they don't have one. Once again, he claims that it is crucial to have a document and that the family has to leave the area. Defeated, the father tells one of his sons, Abdelkadir, that they will not attend school, which he contested. He says that he has no means to support them anymore. He grabs a handful of sand and turns to his family to remind them not to forget that the land belongs to them. The family gathers what they have and leaves their land with heavy hearts. In a time to come in Sétif, Algeria, a mass movement occurs with the participation of different people shouting for equal rights and claims to free Algeria. Meanwhile, Saïd is being chased by Abdelkadir to step forward for the protest and informs him that Germany has lost and they will finally gain freedom. However, he refuses to join as he says he has a match to supervise to earn a living. He disappointingly calls for Saïd once more, which the latter ignores. He walks through the crowd to assist Halim, the boy who will fight the match under his supervision. Concurrently, the protesters continue their campaign. Suddenly, a group of officers in black suits stops the rally and tries to take their flags away. A protester refuses to give it to them. Then, the officer takes out his gun and shoots the protester. The other men, who happen to be police officers, reveal their weapons and shoot the protesters on sight. The protesters run for their lives while being shot at by the police. The gunfire immediately occurs on the streets and from the higher floors of the buildings surrounding them. Moreover, more military vehicles come to the place of the rally. The protesters are shot on the spot, and they drop dead. At the same time, some of the army's units go to the boxing match where Saïd is, and the crowd is also caught in gunfire. When the gunfire finally comes to ease, Saïd makes his way home, where he finds his father shot dead. He goes to hug him and checks if he's dead. Regardless of how often he calls on him, his father stays lifeless. Even before Saïd can absorb what just happened, he hears a gunshot from a distance, leaving him no choice but to escape to safety. He returns home to find his mother on the deck of their house, upset about all the dead bodies. At once, Abdelkadir hides in one of the houses but is later caught by the police. The police order him to fall in line along with the other captives. In 1953 in Indochina, soldiers were entering the plain, including Messaoud. He reads his mother's letter informing him about Abdelkadir's imprisonment and that Saïd is always by his side. The following year in Sétif, Oton, Saïd proceeds to the home of Mr. Qaid, which confuses him on how he can enter his abode. Saïd says that he is there to give him a gift. After a while, he stabs Mr. Qaid as revenge for his father and his entire family. He spits on the old man's dead body and steals his watch and wallet. As he returns home to his mother, he immediately persuades her to pack her things and live in France. During the winter of 1955 in Nanterre, France, Saïd and his mother rented tiny wooden houses shaped like boxes. He uses the watch he stole from Mr. Qaid as an initial payment. That night, he uses a carton as a blanket and assures his mother that it is only temporary. The next day, Saïd walks the narrow paths of the slums where a guy suggests to him to work for Renault. Later, he walks slowly, inspecting his surroundings. He finds a man in a black suit and greets him. After their conversation, the guy stops smoking and leaves, and Saïd immediately follows him to convince him to work. Meanwhile, their mother visits Abdelkadir at the jail. She notices how he got thinner. She assures him he does not deserve to be there as he has never committed murder or theft. He is not a criminal but a man of ideas and a fighter. She bids goodbye to his son by saying, "May God bless you." 6 months later, it is the month of spring in France. Saïd wears good clothes and tries to give his mother money, which she refuses. He can make a fortune through his work in Pigaul's shady clubs and boxing halls. As he is ignored and left by his mother, he gives it to a girl named Zora instead. Messaoud, who comes home from the war, is watching them all the while. As Saïd notices his brother, he greets him excitedly, and they hug. He calls their mom, who is also as happy as he is when she sees her son. One morning, the mother fetches water when Abdelkadir surprises her. He is now out of prison. They are delighted to see each other and share an embrace. The family is currently enjoying a meal together with Zora. During this time, the mother also talks about Saïd's line of work, calling him a bandit. After the meal, the three brothers talk outside. Messaoud agrees that their mom is correct and that no one will respect him if he's a bandit. On the contrary, Saeed refuses to accept the name called to him. He says that in the world they live in, it's either you have money or you are worth nothing. He adds that because of money, Abdulkadir is finally free. In defense, Abdulkadir says he'll have true liberty if his country is freed. Moreover, he campaigns strongly about change and that the three must rally the streets of the entire slums. He is fighting for the revolution that Messaoud supports. However, Saeed says that there's no need for such efforts. He has learned how to make money, and it will be easier for them now that they are intimidating. He wants them to make their own rules. Messaoud believes this is contrary to the principles of his brothers and that he has to choose a side. The next day, Abdulkadir and Messaoud spend their shift at Renault to work. At the end of their shift, Abdulkadir encourages their co-workers to join the FLN, an armed struggle that controls everything and hides underground. The employees continue to time out and exit the working place. All of them ignore the speech of Abdulkadir until he is stopped by the management, saying that no politics is allowed in the working area. That night, Abdulkadir walks into a busy tavern. Messaoud is already there waiting for him. Then, he turns off the music to let Abdulkadir speak and convince the people to join the FLN party. Subsequently, the guy on the counter interrupts him and says that the only legitimate party is the MNA. Abdulkadir disagrees, and the commotion between them escalates. Later on, two men get up and come to him. They drag him to a chair in the pub, then one of the guys intimidates him into saying, "Long live the MNA," but Abdulkadir disobeys him and spits on the ground. He is slapped by the guys and is strangled. He is threatened not to return to the tavern again and dragged out of place. Afterward, Abdulkadir and Messaoud are both kicked out of the tavern. After a while, a man approaches them, saying he is an ally. The next afternoon, Abdulkadir, Messaoud, and their newfound ally go back to the tavern and confront the guy on the counter last night who is currently eating. The three men surround the guy, who seems unbothered at first. Abdulkadir reads the constitution of FLN, stating that the accused denies the authority of the FLN and its necessity for armed struggle. On behalf of the revolution, the guy is sentenced to death. He tries to resist, but the three men corner him. Abdulkadir hesitates to strangle the guy, so Messaoud is the one to do it. They leave as he announces that the guy died at 3 p.m. Later, Colonel Favor comes to the tavern to inspect the dead body. On the day of Messaoud and Zora's wedding, the people in the slums celebrate. At night, as the party continues, they are clueless that the police are approaching to inspect and raid their area. The police recklessly drag people out of their houses. Meanwhile, Saeed hears and notices the police and warns everyone. He manages to escape the place, but the attendees are left there and are being inspected. The celebration is abrupt by the police. One morning, Messaoud and Abdulkadir enter a building where the members of FLN wait for them. Their independent party continues to multiply its members. Abdulkadir calls on the members and lets them introduce themselves. The two of them are named Ali Benjbir and Nordini Saleh. They state their pledge, and they are congratulated. That evening, Messaoud enters Saeed's cabaret named La Casbah. Saeed greets him and asks him to sit with him comfortably. He requests a woman to get an envelope from Vincent and gives it to him. A few seconds after, the woman delivers the envelope with money. Then, Messaoud tells him that the cabaret is not the place for Saeed. As a response, Saeed invites him to his real place, a boxing hall. Currently, men are practicing boxing. He talks about the Algerian boy he bumped into when escaping the police on the night of Messaoud's wedding. The following day, Abdulkadir listens to the radio. News about the FLN being terrorists and causing harm is being broadcasted. Meanwhile, a commissioner named Pico interrogates an activist about FLN. Later that night, they bring the men outside and make them stand by the river. Pico asks them if they can swim. The officers tie their hands and push them onto the river, struggling to survive. After some time, Abdulkadir learns about the commissioner who kills civilians and activists. He informs Messaoud about Pico and plans on how they can eliminate him. He gives him a name that can help them enter Pico's office. Messaoud immediately remembers Atmani Yasser, one of the soldiers he was in Indochina. He claims that the man owes him his life. The following day, Abdulkadir confronts Atmani in a park that is peacefully watching his family. He makes the man uncomfortable by saying his real name, but they both avoid causing a scene. He tells him that the revolution needs him. He adds that it is the right time to redeem himself as he has always been a traitor. Later that day, Messaoud and Abdulkadir set off to a boxing hall where Saeed's guy is competing. They watch the fight, and eventually, Saeed's fighter wins. He is ecstatic about his victory and announces that the Algerian boy will fight in the championship of France the next time. However, after the fight, his two brothers approach him privately and tell him that the championship will not occur. They disagree that the Algerian boy will box for the enemy as it is considered treason. On the contrary, Saeed declares that his boxer will fight for Algeria and no one can stop him. The following day, Abdelkadir gives Messaoud a map of Pico's office provided by Otmani. Messaoud gives him a gun to protect himself. As they proceed with the plan, Abdelkadir goes to Pico's office. After being inspected, he goes to the second floor, where he sees Messaoud. He points where the gun is to him and signals him to enter Pico's office. He shoots at Pico, then Messaoud follows him inside to hit him again. They immediately get out of the place to escape. They are caught in gunfire with the police, but their men from the FLN are also there for backup. After that, Colonel Favor goes to Pico's office to investigate the encounter. Afterward, Colonel Favor searches for information to identify who murdered Pico. Eventually, he learns about Sunni Abdelkadir, who was arrested on May 8, 1945, and that he received his education in prison. That being the case, they visit La Casbah to ask Saeed if he recognizes Abdelkadir because they share the same surname. He lies about knowing the man. Then, the inspector orders him to close the lounge due to security problems. Later, he notifies his two brothers that Favor is searching for them. Agitatedly, he also condemns their presence near his home. One rainy day, Messaoud stops Favor while pointing a gun at him and orders him to go to the car, following him. They drive to where Abdelkadir is to negotiate and convince him that he is on the wrong side. After the discussion, the colonel leaves. Still, he proceeds to lead enforcement they call the Red Hand that fights terrorism. They have the immunity from the Minister of Justice and the Prefect to terrorize supporters of FLN and to execute their leaders. For the next movement of the FLN party members, they gather in a forest and prepare their weapons. They halt the unit of Harkis and surround them. Afterward, they ambush the unit and then escape. Later, Favor goes to the place of the encounter to inspect the executed police. In the evening, Abdelkadir informs Helene that he will go to Germany tonight and she must come with him. Without second thoughts, she agrees. Meanwhile, Favor is advised that Abdelkadir enters Helene's theater, and he assures the Red Hand will take care of him. Later that same night, Helene is about to go home, and she walks to enter her car. Then, Abdelkadir notices a suspicious guy leaving the vicinity. He tries to warn Helene, but it's too late. At once, her car explodes as she starts to operate it. He is shocked to see her die, but he eventually has to leave the area. 1 year later, it was the spring of 1960 in Germany. Abdelkadir and Messaoud inspect the weapons they would need for the struggle. Then, they load it in their vehicles. After that, Messaoud speaks to the party members to order them to go to France individually and not to talk about their plans. He also reminds them about the curfew in Paris. A few moments later, Messaoud and Abdelkadir drive their buses to leave their hideout. In one of the trains in Paris, a member of the FLN is arrested by the police due to the curfew. He justifies that the curfew is for Algerians, not Moroccans. Still, the police make him follow them. Thereupon, Favor interrogates him at his office and states that he is an Algerian. He intimidates him into talking about the resistance's plans. The next day, Otmani calls Saeed and warns him about the situation of his two brothers in Valenciennes. He says it is not a trap, and he's doing it because he owes his life to his brother during the war in Indochina. Immediately, he drives to Valenciennes to search for his brothers. At night, the buses arrive with the two brothers on board. They command everyone to acquire their machine guns and ammunition quickly. As the men are occupied gathering and preparing their weapons, Abdelkadir hears the sound of approaching vehicles. He silences everyone and tells them that the police are coming. Messaoud shoots at them to defend themselves. The police and the FLN are now caught up in intense gunfire. Some of their police are taken down as well as their men. Hereafter, more police come to surround the FLN party. They struggle to evade the bullets of the police. The two brothers find their way to Saeed, who comes to rescue them. Right before Messaoud can enter his car, he is shot by the police. The following day, Messaoud struggles with the bullet that hits him. He instructs his brother to ask their mother and his wife for forgiveness. He stops speaking and breathing. Then, they stop to take all the grief. Saeed covers his lifeless brother with a black cloth and then goes to Abdelkadir to comfort him. On October 17, 1961, the boxing championship was about to happen in Paris. Saeed looks excited about the match. All the while, the police are entering the boxing hall. He watches his boxer train a few moments before the competition. Meanwhile, Abdelkadir enters Saeed's room to warn him that the FLN will kill him and that he has to cancel the match. Saeed is upset, saying he has waited for this moment his whole life. With a heavy heart, he tells the trainers to go out of the room, then he asks his Algerian boxer to get dressed because the match is cancelled. The boxer argues with him and fights that he will proceed with the competition. because it seems like he cannot be stopped. Saeed pulls out his gun and shoots his leg. Later, the brothers make their way through the crowd to leave the place. However, they encounter a police who immediately points his gun at them but is shot first. The audience shrieked in fear due to the sound of a gunshot. On the other hand, Favor hurries to chase them. The brothers run for their life going to the train. They feel relief when they enter the train, and Favor cannot catch up. Then, they hear the men on the other wagon chant, "Long live Algeria." However, on the next stop, they witness the Algerian men being beaten up by the police brutally. The men on the train are dragged out and are hit by the police officers' batons. While the ruckus is happening, the men do not stop chanting, "Long live Algeria." Suddenly, someone shoots Abdul Qadir, which makes Saeed fly into a rage. A few minutes pass, and Favor arrives and looks at his dead body. He whispers they won, but the Algerians never stop chanting for their country. The film ends on July 5, 1962, the day of independence of Algeria, where it flashes the people celebrating their freedom after a long active resistance for freedom and independence. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.